Thank you for tuning. We got Arena back in the house. We're having a conversation today on leadership, the case of innovation stagnation. Irina, say hi to the people.
Hello, people.
Yay. All right. So that's a very interesting combination of words we were just discussing in the B footage. Innovation stagnation. What comes to mind when you hear that those terms together?
I would say that there is no innovation. That's it's stagnant. That's not happening.
Right, right. Because innovation is to introduce as new. So nothing new is being introduced. Okay, it's very straightforward. So what we got here, we got a little expression of what that phrase means in an expanded form without going to the etymology. So innovation stagnation refers to a situation where an organization or a society experiences a lack of progress, growth, or new ideas due to failure in fostering innovation. And who's responsible for these dynamics? The leadership at the end of the day. So I want to bring us to this point here. Let's start with this. We've all seen this before. They done tweaked it a little bit to make it look a little bit more palatable, right? It states, for those that don't know, this is the graph or a version of the graph that shows the discrepancy between productivity and compensation and wages. So up until 79, right? Productivity, compensation, and wages all kind of went together with some tight little dance like a barbed wire, right? When they in 79 it split. Now since 79, hourly pay is only up 14.8%, which is amazing when you think about what the average cost of living increase per year is like 2.5%, right? Based on inflation, they say, or something. So we're not even gonna do the complicated version of the math, right? If we go 20 years times 2.5, what is that, like 40, 60%?
Well, let's look at last year. Last year, groceries were costing what about 20% less than this year.
Oh wow. So yeah, that's not even talking about the exponential stuff that happened in the last couple years. So over the last 20 years, at least on this graph, 20 something years, 22, 25 years, wages, hourly pay, and some graphs showed compensation, which would include like 401k and medical benefits, stuff like that collectively. But it's only up 14.8%. Productivity is up 64.7%. So they're squeezing more out of us and giving us less, but it's even lesser than we think the less that we think that it is because of the inflation and the cost of living increases and everything. So we're in the hole, basically. We're going into the red. This is a great, I think, follow up conversation from where we left off with the starving artist situation, right? Because if we look at every talent and skill as an art form, no matter what your job title, this is the position the companies have us in the quote unquote United States. And this is why we need to change our values of our community to appreciate each other so we can build with friends and ourselves. What now? I'm gonna open the floor to you because I said a lot. Go ahead.
I was also researching this morning about the productivity of remote work versus the work in the office. And the remote work turned out to be less productive, and it's still the same pay, but less productive. But it is more healthy, more sustainable for the people. But still, like in our community here, I was trying to look for a remote work, and then I contacted a recruiting agency to find the graphic design work remotely. And they said for over a year they haven't had much success finding people finding work remotely. They found only orders for on-site work. And it's crazy how they want to put us in the box, they want to underpay us and put us in a situation where we're struggling instead of situation where we flourish.
So, would you consider that valuable insight that you just provided a lack of adaptability on the side of the employee or the side of the employer?
I would say that it is on the side of the employer to of the leader to set the boundaries. Okay, this is what we're going to accept. This is what we're going to go for. It is on the side of the leader, side of the employee.
Yeah, because ultimately, if you're saying that, and the thing about statistics is they always can be used to prove pretty much whatever you want. Because I remember, at least in the middle of the quote unquote quarantine, the numbers were showing that they were impressed with at home work because it made them more productive. Like,
Mm.
but it at this, so they may wind up doing, you would only normally work 8 hours, right? Probably get an hour lunch or whatever they give you, half an hour lunch. They found that people would be naturally willing to work 10 hours at home because they were just at home, right? So it was more production in those cases, and or people were more productive because they could get their work done and then they could go live their life. So they got it done quicker, better, faster, so they could just be done with it. And then they could go play, I don't know, PS4 at the time, PlayStation 5 now, something, right? So what it sounds like is that they're unhappy that remote workers found a better quality of life because maybe they didn't do as much productivity. So that meant they were getting paid more to do a little less, which apparently wouldn't be so bad if productivity is so high compared to our wages to begin with. Speak on that aspect of it.
Agree. If the productivity is less but the pay stays the same, that means that we're working for, even though I would say anyway, raise the hourly pay because people need to pay for the bills.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, can we live? Right. So we got a resistance to change there, right? Because the change happened, people were actually much more, aside from not being able to go out and live a social life or whatever because of being stuck at home. I think people were much more happier and engaged, right? As a community. Um, so we have a resistance to change because now after that, the leadership of workplaces are like, for whatever reason they have, which varies between company to company. Some of them get they're maintaining these facilities, so that's overhead. So they feel like they need to bring you back in, or else they're wasting money. Versus, hey, if you were meeting the same productivity or exceeding it in some cases, depending on some companies you talk to, maybe you don't need that office expense of $5 million to maintain an office building every year, and you could actually take that, put that back into the workers, give them an extra increase in bonus pay, and now they're more productive and they're working from home. But
Exactly.
we
That's a
have a
great
resistance. Excuse me, go ahead.
that's a great solution. And you said we have a resistance to change and people are just stuck to the way they were. And it probably is making sense to them that if a leader or a manager is right next to the person, that they're able to micromanage a lot better than if they're remote and only way they have is through a video chat meeting or a text message or a call.
That's true. And if you got people that you need to micromanage, or you got a supervisor that feels the need to micromanage, that means you already have a disconnect with the people that's doing the work, appreciating the work getting done. So maybe you don't have the right people there to begin with. And so maybe the supervisor's the wrong supervisor. Maybe the reason the supervisor need to micromanage is because he's not a good leader or she's not a good leader, right? So we had at 3M, the mindset was you hire great people and you leave them alone, right? It's a natural understanding that Irina may be able to get X done in 4 hours. Pasha maybe take him 5. But we're not after the 4 or 5 hour discrepancy. What we're after is maintaining the quality of work produced. So leave them alone. Let them do the greatest they can do. So, you know, that may be a dynamic we need to explore. Take the time, get the right people, and then you don't have to micromanage them and let them do their thing.
An interesting thing, you're saying that for the people to do their thing, less micromanagement. A lot of times, because of our system, we are not taught to be very independent in our work. We're taught that we need to get homework and somebody else will tell us what to do. Well, you're graduating from high school, you're graduating from college, and that's what you've been taught to do. You've been taught to get an assignment and get it done.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been taught that You find your own assignment, or you see an assignment and you take a long time to gradually progress it and manage your own time. Usually you just cram it at the end by the due date. And with that experience going into the workforce, to have that productivity that they want, they have to implement a strategy to assign people tasks and pretty much micromanage them. Otherwise, things get past due date, don't get done at that time. So they're not following up. There's miscommunication. There's always chaos in companies when you get into the deep into any company. Things get done, but they're a little chaotic.
That's true. And that's the beauty of a great leadership because they are able to manage that chaos. They're able to keep everybody focused on tasks. Like um, when you implement, when you have a task like a project, and you say, okay, everybody, this is what we're gonna do, and go do it. It's not to say that you just check back 6 months later, right? Because you just let them go and do their thing. We implement what's known as Scrum meetings. Have little daily 15-minute meetings where you give updates, stuff like that. So you're able to say, hey, what's the status update on this? Now, everybody, all the departments are represented. Everybody knows everything. They're all getting an update. So the project moves along faster because it's a way to hold accountability in place, right? But the cool part about it is it's even better because even that would still be bad unless you have people that are excited about what they're doing to begin with. So if you're not at a position, if you're an employee, if you're working a job that you don't like for whatever reason, it's best to get out of that and go find something you enjoy doing. The same way you naturally transition from the creative content position at the real estate firm, you want it to be satisfied because the word pay means to satisfy, especially when dealing with money, like two separate thought processes, being satisfied with quality of life, the fact that I don't have to commute 2 hours every day, it's here, it's local, whatever the case is, that's all part of the overall satisfaction, comma, especially when dealing with money. So part of your pay was the pay increase, right? So that naturally made you more satisfied going, leaving that position, even though you're creating what you want, doing what you want creatively, and going somewhere to do something else because you that was part of the position. But that
Right.
comes from the poor leadership, right? Because the resistance to change and increasing your pay, it discourages the experimentation and adoption of new ideas, creating a stagnant environment.
So flexible and innovative leadership leads to a better environment for the workers.
And a better environment for the workers translates into increased quality in what the workers produce, which is added value to the customer, which makes the community more sustainable long term.
What do you think are other qualities of good leadership?
There, I'm a fan of, my motto is not converting people, right? When I took over in a leadership position, the one thing they couldn't understand that I was doing was I didn't convert people. And what I mean by that is you find out what they're good at, who they are, and you let them be themselves in getting us to the destination. It's a Simon Sinek quote I model after. Once we agree on the destination, it makes it easier to overcome all obstacles, right? So the goal is not to force you to say, hey, you need to fit into this position for 18.50 an hour and do what did it say? 64% more work, right? So imagine this. This wouldn't be bad, right? This would be totally different, for example, if they said, okay, we only increased your pay 14.8%. Why don't you give us 14.8% more productivity than 79 versus 64? That may make us feel more appreciated, but no, you're trying to squeeze the extra 50 out of us because you're looking to make a profit, like you mentioned, and give it to the stockholders, which has nothing to do with the people who's making it happen, right? So there's a bunch of different ways to implement. You hire the right people, leave them alone. Don't convert them. Find out what they're good at and feed what they're good at. So what if your job that was paying you 18.50 an hour that you wanted to leave for, right? So you can go make 30. What
Yeah.
if your job said, "Hey, well, what would you value doing for 18.50?" They already know they're getting over on you. So what if they asked you that and said, "Hey, okay, you got these 10 things that you do on a daily basis. What would you feel would be worth doing for 18.50?"
I would say put me down to remote so I can make my 30 at another place while doing all the work that I'm supposed to be doing for the 1850, that I don't have to travel and that I spend less time doing it. And alongside, I can supply my basic needs with another job. I would be fine.
Exactly. Exactly. And that may be different for each person that we interview, right? But it naturally makes sense, especially if you got an hour long commute each way. The price of gas, you're saving $100, $200 a week on just gas alone, right? Maintenance on the car decreases. That's all stuff that you can revert that revenue or that income stream back into yourself, back into your household, back into some sort of quality of life for yourself. Maybe now you could do yoga that you didn't get to do before because you can afford it, whatever, right? And you have time because you're not stuck in traffic for 2 hours a day to go do the same job, right? That gives you a little bit more time. So it increases quality of life. Do you think that that's what many people found out when they started working these remote situations that they're so sought after now? And now the employers are like, no, we need to squeeze. We can't, right? Talk about that aspect of it a little more.
I do think that people found out that they can be more flexible, that they have an opportunity to have a better quality of life, to have a better chance, and that's why they're not going for the jobs that they used to go before. That they had a taste of a little bit of freedom, that they can have they have an option to do something better for their life, to spend more time with their family, to spend more time with their kids, to have a better income for more time that they earn. And I'm seeing increase in entrepreneurship as well. That people are starting businesses, people are starting self-employment, and they want that part of life rather than getting squeezed in a box into the requirements and expectations of the employers.
Mhm.
um, I see that trend going on right now. And one of those boxes that I found out in that position with the mortgage firm, the real estate firm, is that my capabilities exceeded what their box was meant for. They were looking for a person who can write some code and follow instructions.
Right.
And my skills were way beyond what their intention of the position was.
And there you go again with hierarchical barriers. Not to say again, but that's another point of the stagnation, the hierarchical barriers, right? I have my notes here on it. It's saying that structures that are overly hierarchical can stifle the flow of ideas, right? The decision making is concentrated at the top, and lower level employees feel discouraged from contributing innovative solutions. So, really, what happens is that they have someone that's overqualified for the position, right? And you, me, and many, pretty much no matter where we work at, we're gonna be overqualified. Like it's not like that we're getting hired for a CEO making 10 million a year, right? I didn't say we couldn't do that, but pretty much certain jobs, many of them people are working them are overqualified. What that means, though, if you're smart about it from a leadership standpoint, is that means you got a huge investment because look at all the knowledge and intangibles you have, all the opportunities that you could actually improve and contribute because of those intangibles. But guess what? No, they want you to shut up, like you said, and take orders and just do A, B, C, and D and focus on this. And what is that? That's missed opportunities because they're overlooking the talent that they actually have. And you know what? You only made 18.50 an hour, but I guarantee if they let you do what you wanted, like what you were actually capable of in there, make changes, implement new things, you would feel so much better that you probably might even forget that you were making 18.50 because you would be more so enjoying yourself. I could tell you my story firsthand, but let's hear yours first.
I have people in Azure that are asking me, what am I supposed to do? I'm coming in. What is my role? What is my title? And they're coming in for an interview, and I'm saying, okay, what can you do? And they're like, okay, I can write, I can do code, I like social media, I want to be a public figure. But none of those like fit into one single role. So I'm saying you can do all of them.
Exactly.
You're good, you can do all of them. We'll find a project for that, we'll find a project for that, we'll develop you here, we'll get more projects over here, you'll be recognized. Fostering that person's skills and proving it to the world that they can do it all. They don't have to pick one or another. They don't have to fit themselves in a box. They're that unique piece of a puzzle that is just them, and that's what they do.
And I like the way you put that because I have a habit of speaking in equations of infinity, but that's actually exactly what I'm saying. Or let me say, and that's exactly what I'm saying when I say you get the right people, let them be, and don't convert them. So you didn't say to them, "Well, you got all this talents, but we want you to stay in this box." Because now you're squeezing them, you're compressing them, you're cutting off their who they are, pieces of who they are. They're no longer natural at that point. Now they're scared. Now they're walking on eggshells. They don't know if they crossed the line today. They don't know if they're gonna, you know what I mean? They're not feeling empowered to speak up, make a change, even offer that a change could be made. All stifling innovation. So I had the luxury of I wound up working at a plant, right? It had two production buildings and one warehouse. I became the maintenance scheduler planner. So I was responsible for the integrity of all the assets, all the manufacturing equipment, all that stuff with the team I was leading from a scheduler planner standpoint. I was the only non production worker in the whole plant that did not have any degree because I was simply good at the analytics. And the way I did that was when I was back on the production line, I would be like, and this is why I appreciate them. But even they had a glass ceiling where it was like, oh, you can't go any higher because you don't have a degree now. You don't reach, we can't get you around that. So they lose out there, right? But here's the thing. The way I did that was I'd be on a production line, like many people, and I would be like, yo, this could be done better. And I would go and they'd be like, oh, this could be done better by doing ABC. Well, engineering is the one that engineering department handles that changes like that and stuff. So I would be the one to not stop there. I go talk to engineering team and find out, yeah, they could do that. They're backed up in projects for 11 months. It would take them 2 to 3 months to do it once they get to it. So that means we could put this request in, but the change won't physically take place to help the people on the floor today for like a year and a half. So then I go back and be like, look, by the time they get to it, it'll be a year and a half from now for it to be done. I may not be as fast as them, right? Because they're these high quality engineers that's been doing it for 30 years. It may take them 2 or 3 years. I might get it done in 4 or 5 on my own. And, with a team and working a project. Let me start today and we'll at least have it done, even though it take me 2 more months when I start. We'll have it done 6 to 8 months before they would finish because they're 11 months from getting to it. See, we got to start being innovative with ourselves to position our value, right? And that's how I was able to be like, oh, this, and it worked. And they're like, oh, they didn't call me Pasha. I went by my juridical name, but they would be like, they knew I was Pasha though outside of there. I didn't hide that. But the thing is, it was like, oh, snap, he can do this. Of course I can do this. Like, this is, I got 34 Wonderlic score. We can do anything. Me and Irina can do anything you give us. The question is, do you value us enough to, one, offer us compensation for it, and two, appreciate the fact that we can do it, right? And that's how it became, hey, okay, a couple projects like that. And then next thing you know, I'm running the maintenance department. And then next thing you know, I'm the vice chairman of maintenance and reliability chapter for all 3M Global. No degree, no maintenance experience, right? No certification. I got,
All
nothing.
it takes is recognition. Somebody recognized your talent. Somebody says, yes, you're credible, yes, you can do it, and they said, yep, we're gonna promote him.
And that's exactly what you're doing for the community with Azure Agency, putting them in positions where their talent can be recognized and they can shine and have a item on their resume that shows that they're capable and well skilled, and actually go look at the results of how valued it was by the customers, clients that we did it for.
Mm-hmm.
Speak on that for the people to join Azure as a creator. Also, the value that it brings having people that actually enjoy what they're doing do the work for them, even though they may be doing it as a volunteer state. They're much more happier and much more quality work being done than some people who are in a position that hate their job.
They are much better at doing their work when they love doing their work. And I believe that the only person that knows their true worth, then that knows what they're capable of, is the person themselves. So I can't define somebody like, oh, that person is a graphic designer, oh, that person is a marketer, because they might not be. They might have a skill in marketing, they might have some skill in graphic design. What I define them as a creative, and what I define them as a leader. I define everybody as a leader because they've been leading their whole life from birth to development to school. How they did everything, they had to lead themselves to get the step by step go through life and develop in the areas that they were more talented in, they were more interested in, they were more curious in. Like for me, I would draw horses. Like as a kid, as a 2 year old, as soon as I was able to hold a pencil, I would draw horses. And right now I'm teaching horseback riding, I'm doing graphic design, I'm doing marketing. And nobody can say like, oh, this is graphic designer. Not really, because I'm leading a company, I'm doing graphic design, I'm also teaching horseback riding. And all of those things that we do, they're really like different hats that we can wear, and only a person that is doing it knows exactly what they can do and what they're capable of. Like for example, for you, Pasha, I thought, okay, you're a social media person, you're advocating for social change. Like that's pretty much, it was a picture for me, for you. And now you're saying, okay, I've been in the engineering department and I've been crafting things and managing people. I'm like, wow, my picture is expanding now.
That I think that's a value everybody has. And when you ask me about what is good leadership, I think good leadership is to find out what that person's joy is. I kind of said it like that, but a different way when I said, hey, don't convert them, find out what they enjoy and then feed them that. I think, but here's the opportunity for the leadership. The leadership is to not pretend that the human aspect is not a resource, right? That's why they call it human resources. But the question is in how do you properly mine that resource?
Ooh, you're saying it as a mine the resource. I say it as flourish it. So mining is that something that's limited, something that's unlimited is something that grows.
I like that, right? So here's what happens. We, as a leader, though, here's the picture. You're absolutely true in what you're saying, right? And that's the beauty of infinity. So as a leader, though, you're meeting someone that you don't know, right? Just like we didn't know each other prior to that. We may have assumptions. That would be error number one, to just assume, oh, Pasha's just this or Arena's just that, right? That would be error number one from a leadership standpoint. You never took the time to discovery. So when I say mine, I'm thinking about dig down deep and find out who they are to discover the ore, the mineral, the valuable aspects of them to themselves. Maybe not to the you or the company. Because remember, all that we wanted you to do was this 10 things for 1850. When you start talking about you can do stuff outside of that, now it's not value to corporate America. They're not interested. You're wasting time. All this negative stuff. But we take the time to find out who you are, find out why you're good at this and why you enjoy that. Your value goes up in those areas to me as a leader because I realize who you are. Now, once you find that and you extract the knowledge that or that resource exists in you, now you can work on the flourishing aspect. You know what I mean? It's kind of like to get to the seed of an apple, you got to eat the apple first, right? Now you get to the seed, you can plant the seed in the right environments and it'll grow and produce more apples and everything will be abundant, right? But
You
what if
can
we never knew that seed had
only,
apple had seeds?
only as much about the person. No, you wouldn't know the whole. If you're mining, you can mine a certain pieces, certain seeds that they have. You wouldn't know the whole. So I leave it over to the person themselves to share that seed, like which seeds they want to develop,
Mhm.
and examine. Okay, this is a good seed. This is like you're telling me that you love this, but then your actions say that you don't really love it because you're forcing yourself into it just because I don't know, some social pressure. Somebody told you that this is a good thing. and
Yeah,
you've been doing it for a long time. You got used to it. So it's something that's easy, but your heart is not burning for it. Because some people can be misled too. That they're looking at a certain aspect of their life, and they've been doing it for 30 years, and they don't really love it. They're just used to doing it, and from the inside, it's really hard to see it. But when you're talking with another person, when you're getting to know them, it's easy to see, okay, does this person have passion in it, or they're just doing it because they're just doing it, like just wheel turning.
absolutely. And then that is the role of a great leader versus a boss, right? The boss is just going to tell you, psh, psh, do it, do it. The leader's going to come to you and say, hey, you know what? I've been watching you over time, and I see that you do this. You do a great job, but I don't really think you're enjoying yourself. Talk to me about it. Is that is that a true observation? Am I off? What's the deal? And then you sit down with them, and maybe you have coffee or you have lunch together, even though you're the leadership and they're the employee, or they're whatever the relationship is. Um, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, right? You come to them, hey, look, is that a true observation, assessment? Tell me what your real side of that is. They can go, you know what? Maybe they start off defensive, and no, there's nothing wrong with me, leave me alone, right? But then 6 months later, because you've coached it out of them, you find out A, B, C, and D. Or maybe they're open and up front at that very moment. They say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I really, I'm at this job because I gotta pay, whatever it is for them, right? And I do this, I do that, but I really don't like this. I really want to do this in life. And okay. And you like, what do you do outside of here? You're like, oh, I like basketball, I like tennis. Now you can start to build. And again, now you can have the pivot where you're gonna say, okay, well, you know what? This project came up. I got 5 people I can give it to. You know what? I'm gonna give it to Arena because I know A, B, C, and D about her. She enjoys such and such. And yeah, somebody else may be in your ear. Well, she's not qualified to handle. She can't. She shouldn't. She only this, and she make 18. But you know what though? The same way I got that position given to me was because the conversations. The important thing also for the employee is to be open about themselves, right? If you got a good leader, you can talk to them about who you are because they're supposed to want to know who you are. So they gave me the opportunity because one, I was in their face about it. Like, look, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. I got 34 100 score. I can do this. Give me a chance. If no, I'll work with leadership,
Not
whatever, right?
everybody's like you, though. People are more timid than just up in the face. Let's go do it. I can do it. It's somebody telling them no, and you're like, I keep
No,
going. And a lot
you
of people, they don't. They're just, oh, you tell me no, okay, I'm just gonna keep minding my own business, like do my job. They give up.
I think that's a great point and it's very true. And I think here's what those people need to hear to have that fear factor, right? That's actually an element on here on my list.
And
Is
it's leadership too. A lot of leaders, they're very insecure about themselves as well.
Yeah. And so we got the fear of failure, right? A culture that punishes failure can discourage employees from taking risk and proposing new ideas. So the thing is, though, now look at yourself, right? If we go back to this graphic, right? What we know is that toxic environments are killing us, right? So what I want those people that have that fear is to realize that the worst thing that can happen is for them to tell you no. You can't do it. Not that you can't do it, like you couldn't do it, but they can prevent you from doing it. It's not your role, it's not your job. We're not going to let you. Whatever. That's the worst thing that can happen. But what's worse than that is if you never say nothing about it and you continue to maintain you're going to that toxic environment, feeling like you should have stood up for yourself, you should have done something, and you never did, right? So not only does that kill you faster if you go to try to work there for 30 years, right? It kills the rest of the people that work there faster too because we're all affected. All of our quality of lives as employees of that organization depend on the environment, the atmosphere. And I was very focused on that because I knew quality of life for employees. So I made a lot of changes just to make the workplace better, the culture better. And then
I
we
was
went up. The next thing they know, we broke records because we went up machine uptime skyrocket 7%. I know that don't sound like a lot, but 7% in manufacturing machines being up is millions and millions and millions of dollars of additional production. They were wondering how we did it, and then I could tell them vaguely.
vaguely because they want to understand the details. I get it.
So we gotta value as employees in that position to make sure we're having that conversation, to let them know, one, that we want to, one, that we're interested, one, that we're capable. So get rid of that fear, because ultimately the only thing that's going to happen is you're killing yourself by being in that position and not trying to change it.
I was in a very toxic environment of the Russian ladies, working in a team of Russian ladies, and in a private kindergarten through third grade, so preschool 2 year old up to the third grade of kids, like private school, and there was a lot of Russian ladies employed in America, in California,
Mhm.
and gee, it was difficult. Because anytime you come in, there is so much expectation. I feel like, oh, pressure is on. Expectation to greet everybody, say hello to everybody, be welcoming to everybody. Also, like every single step, you have to do it right. Otherwise, it will be discussed by the ladies. And then behind the back, it would be confronted to the manager. And then the manager is the scary lady too. And she would be like looking at you like, you do everything wrong. You're doing everything wrong. You're about to get fired right now.
Put the fear back on you.
And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? How do I get better? Okay, let's improve. You guys want to open up a new location? Here you go. Let me find out some places that are opening up so we can expand and build a new location. Let me help out here, help out there. Be very helpful for those people. Like build some connections, build relationship with kids, and then in what I probably worked there 6 months. Yeah, probably 4 to 6 months. And then they start giving me tasks to substitute teachers. Like some teachers didn't come out, go substitute, like go do something with a class. So second grade, third grade, and they were like in the back. So they put me to the back. Like instead of putting me into the action, they put me on the backbone. Like just go sit down. And then I'm like thinking, what's going on? So then I come in on Monday, and the managers ask me to talk, like the owners of the place ask me to talk, and they say, you know what? I don't think you're really good with kids. You've been doing really good, but we're consolidating staff right now, so you don't have to go tomorrow. And I'm
Right,
like, okay, when do I come out? And they're like, no, you don't have to come out at all. Here's and they're like shaking their hands. They're like, here's the unemployment package.
right, right, right. That's crazy. And then, and it's probably because really you probably had ideas that scared them, and some of them were felt at risk. Like you said, you go into a position where you are overqualified, and your leadership they'll recognize that part of you quick, right? Because they'll recognize that you could take their job, and then now they have to do stuff, curve you, so that you're not a threat to their future, right? And it's a whole bunch of unfortunate stuff.
I
You
can't.
made a good Go
I,
ahead.
I can't work at any job that they have. Teacher is a teacher. They got credentials. They're teaching a class. The manager is a manager. I'm not in there to take their position at all. I'm in there to expand the business and make it grow. Like this is my passion to make things grow, make things better.
Look, your passion to make things grow is exactly what is required of a great leader in a management position. Not just a manager in a management position, being a manager, but you have the natural ability to take things and make it grow. They saw that in you, and that was a risk. That was a risk. So they had to get rid of you, right? To protect themselves. Look at it like this. This is why you gotta look at it like this. You said something earlier that I took note of, and I wanted to revisit. You were speaking about how you do so many different things, right? And you mentioned you're learning more about things that I do and have background. And that's when I said everybody's in the same position. Like you do, we both do graphic designs, logos, right? You do much more additional things as well. So what happens is this is where I got the title critical solutions expert from. Like you don't see me saying, "Hey, I'm a graphic designer," or "Hey, I make logos." You'll hear me that because you do so many things. How do you explain? you mentioned like it's hard to explain to people what you do. So I just stopped trying because we deal in a world of infinity. You can literally do almost an infinity of things. That's why you always steer upper management in the wrong positions because they're not trying to allow you to grow, right? They're not in the mindset of making you grow or helping you grow rather. They're in a mindset of scarcity and wanting to remain in control because if you grow, oh my God, you're gonna be like bigger than me. We can't have that, right? So critical solutions expert comes into play because it's more about talking to the people. Here we go with that mining and flourishing conversation, right? Find out what their goals and challenges are, and then tell them out of your infinite areas of expertise, right? Or processes that you can perform for them. Now you can tell them how you can help them instead of trying to explain to them that you do 10,000 different things when you spell it all out and confusing the hell out of them, right? So just we're into solutions.
Mm.
We're going to build solutions. Azor is building solutions for the community because no matter if you need a coding person, an IT person, a mural painter, a graphic designer, right, or a teacher, even you got that, right?
We do have some theater performers. We have an aircraft technician. Gee, we have a lot of people.
You see. So now what we're talking about is I want to go back to the those people in the employee position when we were talking about fear, and I want to hear what's really at the ultimate of that is that fear created closed communication channels, which is also a problem when it comes to or area opportunity to offset and curve the innovation stagnation. And we might be talking about this from the people might naturally think leadership in businesses and corporations, but we got to apply the same thought process to our communities. Because if you're the employee that doesn't go to the employer and says, "Hey, I can do this. I want a chance to do this." Now you would have been happy making 18.50 an hour because you're trying new things, you're doing stuff that you like, and you're like, "Yay! I would have had to go spend 6 years as an engineering degree to go do this, but now I'm doing it and I enjoy it. I'm so happy, right? I'm getting a chance." And then you're presenting results and successes, great successes, and you get to move up from that over time. Or you get to learn stuff that you can bring back to the community. The point of the matter is what I'm saying is if you never open your mouth and say that and the leadership doesn't appreciate what you're saying, now ineffective communication between different levels from my notes here of an organization can limit the exchange of ideas, which is what you saw earlier with that role that wanted you to stay in the box and just shut up and do what they tell you to do. Because if you're overqualified, that means you got talent beyond that position that they could value from, but they're cutting you off from it. Talk about that when communication is siloed.
I'm saying it would be great that if everybody was just as bold as you and said, "Yeah, I can do it. Let's go
Mm.
do it. I want to do it." And somebody would be like, "Ah, I don't know. The engineering department manages that." And then instead of saying, "Oh, engineering department manages," I'll just submit a ticket to them, and that's it. Instead of that, going beyond the scope and saying, "I want this done," and making that decision and taking responsibility for that decision, like taking that leadership standpoint. Okay, this is my idea. I'm taking the ownership of it. I want it implemented so much that I'm going to go to as much extent as I can to be able to implement it and see the possibilities. Okay, the engineering team can do it, but I can do it as well. And if I do it, it seems to be better because it's gonna end up there sooner than the engineering team is going to take care of it. And maybe they'll just forget, put it on the back burner, and maybe it's not as important for them because they got so much stuff to do. Maybe they'll put some other things in front. And because for me this is so important, I'm going to go to an extent that I'm going to go implement it. Those are the people, and that's the quality of people that we need to develop, because everybody has introvert or introversion skills, everybody has extroversion skills, and everybody has desires, and everybody has passions, and everybody wants something. And taking that desire and putting it into action, not giving up, and learning to keep pushing for the thing to just get done. That's what we need from from every employee.
And that's what the community gets from Azor Agency. I know because what you specified there is the person who brings it forward, whose idea it is most connected with it most often, right? What we know about the word passion is it actually means suffering, right? But I like that you mentioned the enthusiasm, right? So the person whose idea it is going to be the most enthusiastic about seeing it through to completion, right? And all the glory and and proudness that it could be, right? Splendidness. The person that just has the title as the engineer may actually be passionate about it. It may be suffering to them. Like they said, it's just another task they were given, they have to do to check off their list to maintain their paycheck. They could be dreading coming in to work every day to begin with, right? So the Zora agency people, when they show up, they have the enthusiasm. And that's a great thing, right? Because when you're looking at lacks of resources, creating, inefficient investment in research and development, technology, or training, right, that hinders innovation, creating stagnation. One thing that we're lacking as a resource is enthusiasm.
Mm,
Speak on that.
enthusiasm. It's a very interesting word because I was in a very deep depression when I was in my first marriage. I got married when I was 18 because the guy cooked for me and he seemed to be nice. And I was going to school and I did not like graphic design. I hated graphic design because as art, it's not very much of expression of internal desires, it's internal passion, like what you want to draw. It's doing things that other people need, like selling, marketing, in school, especially in college, that you got to create something that other people are asking you. It's not very much of expression of internal creation. That's what I found out. And I learned to like it. I had to learn, okay, in here, in this little box, how do I expand my freedom? How do I get it? But at that point, because I wanted a lot of things, but I didn't feel like I was following my expectations. I was not there. And everything that I did felt like it didn't support what my vision of myself is. So my image of myself was pretty slim. So anything that I did not have much passion, did not have much enthusiasm. Going to school, like, it was just like, I have to wake up. Like even waking up was a struggle. And it took some changes, some drastic changes of me. Okay, well, I'm at the point where I just want to eliminate myself. I don't want to be here, and I don't want to struggle. Like I want to end it. And I got scared that I am going to end it. And instead of that, when I got scared, I changed everything. I became homeless. I left my husband. I left everything at home, and I started running the finance business. Somebody came up to me. I was trying to expand my self-employment, get a design agency started, and came across the financial agency that said that we're going to teach you entrepreneurship. We're going to teach you how to run a business. It was a marketing company for top financial products in the United States. And I started working with them, making no money for years. And I lived in the car for two weeks or so. And then after that, my business partners said, "Hey, don't do that. Come live with us." So I started living with them and I got my first horse. I just started living for myself. I got my first horse because I just was scrolling down the advertisement and said, "Oh, a horse has a ligament torn and we want to give her away. We don't know if she's going to ride or not." And that's how I got my first horse, Rose. And like that's where my passion's like, okay, I'm doing entrepreneurship. That's where my passion is. That's why my enthusiasm is. I got a horse. That's why my enthusiasm is because I've been loving horses since childhood. That was my dream. Of like my dream is coming through, and I got my first horse, and things started building up. Like things like I'm teaching lessons now. I got my first horse. I'm teaching lessons. I'm doing writing. I rehabilitated her. She's great. She's feeling great now. She teaches kids how to ride horses. And like those small things that I was passionate and enthusiastic about, like doing the small steps, besides the graphic design, because graphic design for me was like put myself in a box, do something that another person wants, like whatever the client wants. Okay, they want to make everything bold, just make everything bold. um,
How
I was
did?
a graphic designer.
Yeah, go ahead. I will come back to that when
You
you
had a
finish.
question. Go ahead.
I can totally relate to that, and I'll tell you what changed for me because I remember that fork in the road myself. The fork in the road was people the fact that you wanted to be super creative, right, in your mind, and you're like, this is gonna be amazing, and then everybody like, well, could you just make it like this? And you're like, that's deflating by itself, right? One, two, when you got someone that says, hey, can you just make it bold? And it's like, w- if I make
Like,
it bold, it throws off every. You don't understand. This is perfectly balanced. If I make that bold, and this is gonna be out of balance with that, it's gonna be too big here. It's gonna look awkward there. I gotta redo. Not that I gotta redo it, but now just don't work at all bold. But if that's what you want, right? But then what happens is you have to question yourself as an artist. Here, this is the question you got to ask yourself: are you wanting to work with people that don't agree, don't value your ability, your ability, right? Don't come to me asking to produce what you know Archie's digital production made, right? Don't do that. They do that, right? You're coming to me, you're coming to Irina for our expertise, our special eye, our intangibles. So here's what happens. What changed the whole thing for me was when I started to say to myself, I only want to work with people that's going to allow me to to do me because we're building a brand which is a version of us. So we can have a consistency. If one thing is consistent throughout our productions, it need to be the intangibles that we apply to it, right? So here's what happens. And I'm not saying we're always superior in thought and the customers never input. No. What is we work with the customers, what allowed me to is the use of psychology. And that's where the extra work of doing a proper, I ain't gonna even say proper, who knows? Somebody else might be doing it way better or way bigger. But producing a design report
mhm.
changed everything for me because then I could sit there and I could say, okay, what do you want to get here? This is because what is important for me is arriving at the destination, right? So what happens is if you look at your graphic design as the project and just the motions are going through it, you can all this stuff can come into place that makes you depressed, right? If you look at the destination and say, okay, we're making the community sustainable. Now that whole project and that client you want to do to the best of not only your ability, but like the reason I say it is I do the same reason that Pepsi paid $1.2 million for. Because my goal is to get that client's job, that brand, the same position in the community as Pepsi holds to give them that chance. So they got to have that same value of psychological embedments in their designs. So that became the destination for me, which go back to that quote I always use, allowed everything else that came for us to arrive there, all those other things became easier to overcome all the obstacles. So now it's like, oh, here, you want that bold? Well, here's the science that shows, per research, why bold would not be good for this application. You see what I'm saying? And then what happens is they can look at that science and go, oh, and I'll close here with this and tell me what you think now. Because the biggest thing with our client is getting over their focus on themselves and letting them know that, hey, you're not making this logo or this production for you to sit there and look at and say I like it. You're making it for it to have form and function to help you in the vision statement and the branding and connecting with future clients and stuff, which is what those people aren't you that we're looking to connect with. And we have to navigate that difference in their mind between self-interest and, oh, actually, yeah, I'm supposed to be interested in what those people are thinking. So that's what changed it for me. It was allowing me to see it as part of making the community sustainable, and then I was able to enjoy the process again.
How long were you in the position before you started making those changes to create the reports? How long were you in the painful position where they wanted bold? And you're like, I don't know how to describe it, but this is going to be a lot of work. And you're just like, okay, I'll just make it bold.
You know what? That's a great question. And for me, it wasn't long lived because I'm the one that as soon as I don't like something, I admit to myself I don't like it because we gotta at that point make a change or just acknowledge the fact that we must enjoy that suffering, that passion, right? So when I started thinking about the failure mode, what we call FMEA, right? Failure mode effect analysis, because the failure was I did the project, it got done, but I wasn't happy at the end. So my joy failed. The project was complete. We gotta look at this and examine this so we can make a change because I'm not gonna be doing this all the time and not be happy at the end of the day. I might
I
as well,
was not happy. I was doing it for over a year and I was not happy at all.
we might as well go
But
back.
my situation was like limited. I gotta make finance. I gotta like make the clients happy. Like as long as I'm going through it, because that was my source of income back then. I was
Yeah.
not working anywhere else. The self employment, the
Mhm.
working for businesses, doing the. I was trying to grow the business. So for me, any client was just like a pot of gold. Like stay, like get them happy, like do what they want to do, and like keep retain them. And I was not at a luxury situation where I could be like, that's not the client that I want. You know, they're very picky. I'm going to go to somebody else. Or, you know what? I want to argue with you. This is not the right way. I didn't want them, that fear of being rejected. That's where
Wow,
I was at. I didn't want to be rejected. That costed me my living.
got you.
And that's where the employees are, because their fear to get rejected is going to impact their life a lot. How do they become more bold but without fearing that they're going to lose their job and they're not going to find somewhere else, and they got four kids to pay rent for, to pay food for, and they have so much responsibility that they have to take care of, and they're working somewhere where they're not passionate about it, and they can't confront the boss because they're afraid to lose the job.
That's a great question. And let's start back. Let's transition back to the business owners, right? That were saying that in the same position, basically, right? If you're going to put yourself in a position of business ownership where you're not happy, then you might as well go back to corporate America because if that's you weren't happy there, right? In most cases, we aren't happy there, or we're in a role that we're not happy at, whatever level that is, right? So you got to ask yourself, why did I work so hard to develop something for myself that still treats me like what I call the volunteer slavery, the job, the work, the corporate America. So when you realize that that would be the same dynamic, you realize, okay, if I'm going to do it for myself, let me make it the way that's best for me. So now, to put it in perspective, sometimes you need the job to keep the lights on, keep the family fed, to buy yourself more time while you're building something that's actually right for you, right? But make sure that whatever you're building is right for you. And that's, I think, the difference. So I had a client one time, and this was part of the change factor, where it was just like so much little, and I was just like, you know what? Here, here's a refund. Here's everything. I'm done. I'm not. No, because you're not going to stress. You know what I mean? No, right? So, but then that's where the psychology became so valuable to me. Like I've always been a fan of psychology, but the more I applied it to, you don't. It negates their need to combat you and battle, right? Because you're building something based on science, right? It's more like engineering and architecture now versus, hey, I like this. Do you like it? So it takes all the questioning out. You want it bold? Well, here it says this. I looked at this data. It says that 74% of your market that you're looking at to target would not appreciate this in bold lettering. Now, do you want to go against who you're trying to get? No, that makes sense. I'm so glad you shared that with me. So now it's not a battle of am I right or wrong or being rejected. It's do you trust the research? And most people, when they see the research coming from like some university or something, they trust that even though we might know it and tell them ourselves, they look at Irina, they look at Pasha and be like, yeah, but can you make it bold? But when you say, hey, the University of Harvard states that, or Forbes states that, they're like, oh, yeah, that's so great. Why they do that, I don't know. But that's what we're at. So for me, it was the implementation of the psychology, but we already do probably in most cases, but presenting the data as a report so that they can see it with their own eyes, know why we're making this change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what saved the situation for me. And then I become more enjoying, even though it's more work, right? I enjoy it more now because it actually makes getting to that finished project of sustainable community that much better because you don't your clients change their mentality when they're looking at that.
Cool skill. Can you put it in the book? Like, here's how to here's how to eliminate the clients that you don't want by not eliminating the clients.
Eliminate the clients you don't want by not. I like the way you put that, and that goes back to what we talked about a moment ago: closed communication channels. See, if you make that design, a lot of times you'll know exactly why you made it that way, or you have because you've been doing it so long, you have a natural feeling for why it should feel that way. It's kind of like music, right? When you look at music, people that make a beat, people that sing a song, somebody will come to you and be like, "Oh, you're off beat," or "You're this," or "You're that." They'll give you all this list of stuff that they think is wrong with it, right? And it's because again, they're seeing it as Irina and Pasha, and we know them. They're down here. We went to school, or we go to work at the same place, or whatever, right? But when it's somebody famous or that they enjoy, or that whatever, they come back behind. They're like, "Oh no, that's not off beat. That's called staccato." Right? That's this fancy word they make up for it to justify why it's shifted to the left or the right, and now it's a genius application. But when you did it, it was a problem, and that's like that money bag. I don't know if you listen to hip hop or rap at all, but it's like that money bag yo quote of the song where he's like, "It's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I do it. Fuck them." Right? So do you be genuine to yourself, and then find the people who value what you do, but then at the same time work to become the greatest you can be. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And that's really what I think it boils down to. And if you're being yourself, then that keeps you always in joy. The moment you step outside of being who you are naturally, you move into the world of happiness, which is luck. Some days you feel lucky, some days you get lucky, some days you don't. That's happiness. We want to resonate, we want to reside in joy. We're on an hour here. How you looking on time? You
I'm good
good?
on
Okay, cool. So we want to resonate in joy versus looking for happiness. What do you think about that differentiation? Happiness being luck and lucky, so you really don't have any control over it. But joy is maintaining that environment that makes you full time. Not to say you won't have ups and downs, but you're enjoying the day because you know the down parts are part of the up parts. So you're in a state of joy versus that roll of the dice all the time in happiness or not.
time. I
I think
believe that happiness is temporary and joy is a permanent state of mind.
so. Now, if you build your brand or business to maintain happiness, it's just like the workplace. Some days you go to work with that boss and you come home happy. Some days you don't. But if you build it to be joyful for you, I think that's the difference that we're looking for, right? Does that answer your question earlier?
It does. So if you have 4 kids and you're working at a job that you're not very passionate about, some days are happy, some days are not, but you're coming home and you're feeding the kids, you're still joyful.
You're joyful.
But
And then
you
go
also
ahead.
find a way for you to get to the place where you are working passionately because you have that something left over. So you do something for yourself, and that way the joy is multiplied. Because things that we're not passionate about and we do, they take away. They take away from our life. They take away from our time, and there is a reason why we're not happy doing it. And like finding a way to escape that situation, escape that box, and grow out of it. That is the way to go.
Yeah. And then not being in that position and saying, okay, this is just what's going to be for me for the rest of my life, right? And be stuck there and let that compression and depression drive you into 6 feet deep, right? With the pressure, but to just take little steps every day, and just build yourself to something where you can be enjoyed. Like you walked away from everything and found a horse, right? And that's because which triggered everything else that came after that for you and what you built. Look at the magnificence of what you built since then. And that really boils down to all paths are part of who we're supposed to become. So when you have that in your heart and your mind and spirit, body, whatever, to say, you know what, I can do that. And you don't go to the boss or the supervisor or leadership at work or at the community and tell them, you're actually being, that was put in you for a reason. Even if you're blocking the pathway to who you're supposed to become at that point, right? Even if they told you no, like in your case, that triggered you to say, did you just tell me no? Well, you know what? This ain't the place for me then. And this stumbled a whole journey in life that led you to be who you are now, facilitating a whole operation, Azure agency, to help create sustainable communities and change lives, both for the business owners and for content creators, all because someone told you no.
A lot of people told us no. A lot of creatives receive a lot of no's.
So when you ask me that more people should be whatever, whatever, and do what I did, I think what they need to understand is the value of the damage that could occur if they don't. If you didn't go to them and say, can I get more? And they tell you no and made you feel like you were worth less, not worthless, but worth less. None of this happens for the world that you're doing.
Yeah.
So, with the fear of the response from leadership, from the workplace, from the people in your community, with the fear of their response and their reaction, to not experience that fear and do it, would you value where you're at now and what you've done for the community far greater than just not experiencing that fearful moment because of what you did?
No,
Or
I
that's
would
where
rather
you
feel fear, get rejected, get the pain, and keep going through it anyway.
right. So I'm no hero. I'm no hero because when you do stuff like that for people at work and you fight hard and you change the workplace, like I'm the one that went and got the plant to spend $10,000 a year for bottled water so that all the employees could have access to free bottled water. I went and did the research. I presented the market study, excuse me, case study in that case to justify the ROI of spending 10K. If we get one person that passes out from dehydration on a hot day, fall out, hit their head, something happens to them. Not only does that person life potentially change or die, equipment fall on them because they fell off, they pulled a rack down on them, whatever. We do it affects their family, affects their community. Y'all could be looking at a multi-million dollar, $100 million lawsuit. This is how many times it happens per OSHA reports. Oh shit! And all of a sudden now $10,000 a year doesn't seem like a lot as an insurance policy to make sure our quality of life is better as employees. See, I'm the one to look at it like that.
Hmm.
So we got to start looking at ourselves like that. Because what happens, those same people that was like, yay, Pasha got us water and this, that, the other. When you do something and for the same people you're trying to help, and then management does what they do to you, like at the school, and they go, oh, you're causing too much trouble. We need to let you go. Those same people don't go, oh wait, Pasha, we need. No, they be like, oh damn, they got rid of Pasha. Oh poor Pasha. Oh, we got something put up. You know what I mean? So the same people you help, if they're not in the right mentality, they won't they won't support the execution of you either. I mean, they won't reject the execution of you. They won't defend you. They'll take, like you said, they'll take. But we got to switch our mindset into valuing people like you, me, and others like us. That way, everybody can do it. And then once everybody has that mindset, it's not like when you cut the hit off because the hit is just one person, right? Now we're all building as a community with the same mindset. We agree on the destination and we're all working the best we can to get there. And that'll make you stand up and say, this is what we need to do because this is where we're at and this is where we're trying to get to. Nothing else matters. So I'm no hero. I'm not special. I'm just like everybody else. We got to change our policies because they're outdated. So the policies and procedures are outdated. That's the last thing I had on my list there. So if the policy was to keep quiet, we got to change that policy. We got to make it be known because just like this, and tell me here what you think. It's not until people communicate with each other that you start to realize no matter how different we look, appear, backgrounds are, journeys in life, most people really want the same thing.
They do. Peace and joy.
So once we get that on the table, we can start to see again. Once you agree on a destination, it's easier to overcome all obstacles. Now you feel out how we can work together because whatever judgment you have, assumptions you have dissipates. And now it becomes how can we work together to get to this destination that we share? And that's what it is. Tell me your perspective on that.
I agree. It's the policies that don't work for us, don't serve us, don't serve the destination. Those are the policies that need to be changed. The formal policies and the informal ones, the ones that we have in the communities, the one that we have that are just stuck informally to the community. Things gotta change. I like change, even though it's painful, even though it's like uncomfortable sometimes. Changes for the better.
That's good. And we had great examples. Getting close to wrapping up here. We had great examples of what happens when you don't change. Blockbuster versus Netflix, Nokia versus Apple and Android, right? Kodak versus the digital camera revolution, uh, government bureaucracy.
Garage.
The huh?
Guys started out of a garage and beat the big dogs.
Exactly, and we each had that opportunity, right? Again, just like you said, you're working. That person that family member is working to support their 4 kids. They're in a position they hate. They find joy in being able to do it. But if you work a little bit each day in the garage, even if it take you 20 years, the impact in the community is what we're after. So once we stop being selfish and focus on ourselves and see the value for the community, the journey becomes valuable and appreciated. So government bureaucracy versus technology, traditional education systems, right? They're all falling and failing because they didn't adapt to change. Ultimately, that affects the workplace. It affects the quality of life of the people in the workplace. But more importantly, this is why we need to apply the transformative leadership to our communities, or else our communities are going to be the next blockbuster.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts.
Let's see. I love this conversation right here. To close the thought, the leadership, it can be like from the top to bottom, it can be from the bottom to the top. I believe the one that's bottom to the top, that one is the better, where the leader is the one who supports the people to get them better, get their situation better, rather than the one that's at the top and expecting people to raise them up and deliver to their expectations.
Absolutely. Go to the source of whatever the issue is. When you got a question, somebody talking shit about somebody to you, and you didn't go to that person and find out for yourself, shame on you, right? So that's the problem with corporate leadership. They 10 states away at some headquarters giving orders to come down the ranks, but they don't know what's happening, and you're hands on, and you're hands on, and they don't want to listen to you tell them what would be better. So it may not be the place for you. All right. So our community is the same way. We need to stop allowing people that don't know nothing about our communities to tell you what you should be doing in your community. All right. or else we're gonna be the next Blockbuster or Nokia. So I appreciate you. Yeah, these are amazing conversations, and I really appreciate you sharing and the diversity you have, right? And the solutions you provide. So no, you can't do what you do with just one title in one box. And I think the people should embrace the fact that they're non-gated, right? Which is actually the etymology of negative, right? I think this is a good closing point. To negative people, positivity appears negative. And that's the problem with transactional leadership. Consider them the negative people. They drove everything in the ground. They don't value you. They just want to keep doing things the same way, even though we've seen change and wages and everything's discrepancy over 20 years. Let's just keep going that way. Let's just keep productivity climbing, keep you getting less. We're going to keep raising the rent, keep raising the price of food. We don't give a shit about you, your family, nothing, right? We just care about this number here. So they're the negative entity in our society, that mindset, that concept. But when we bring positive solutions, they label us as the negative people, right? Because we're non gated.
Twisted.
All right. I appreciate your time. It's Pasha Power, Y7. Irina, say bye to the people.
Thank you for having me.
Man, this is actually, I should have said this in the beginning, but this is the first one was Y7. This one is yours. We can keep going back and forth like this. This is great. All right.
Up to you. Let me know the next date.
Okay, we'll do. Pasha Pyro, Y7. Thank you for tuning.